So welcome back to season 10 of The Great Indoors, recording this entire season live here at MWC Barcelona 2025. We continue to explore cutting-edge innovations shaping the world of connectivity and technology. Now, I'm your host, Matthew Roberts, and as ever, I'm joined by Larissa Yee, my producer. And today we had the privilege of hosting Hesham Fahmy, the Chief Information Officer at TELUS, one of Canada's leading telecommunications companies. Now, TELUS has earned a stellar reputation for delivering top-tier connectivity across both urban and rural regions, whilst also pioneering initiatives in digital health and social impact. Now, Hesham is a transformational leader and innovator with over 25 years of experience in software product development, including 19 years in senior leadership roles, and he holds several patents reflecting his extensive expertise in consumer digital and cloud technologies. In 2023, he was honored with the CIO of the Year award by IT World Canada. Now, joining me as well is Mr. Tomer Gingold from Amdocs. He's a good friend of mine, and he's agreed to co-host this episode with us. And we had a lot of fun and learned a lot of stuff. So in this episode, Hesham will dive into TELUS's remarkable journey from a traditional telecommunications company to the technology-driven organization it is today. Of course, we'll talk about AI, and why wouldn't we? It's been the big theme, of course, here at this year's MWC 2025. So if you're sitting comfortably, let's begin. Okay, welcome back to MWC 2025. This is The Great Indoors, recording live from the show floor. It's the final day of this marathon that we've been through. And I'm really excited and really proud to welcome our guest this morning. He's the Chief Information Officer at TELUS. His name is Mr. Hesham Fahmy. Welcome, Hesham.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
That is great. And also joining me from Amdocs, who's been on the podcast before, he's a bit of a professional at this, is Mr. Tomer Gingold. Welcome, Tomer.
Thank you very much. Thanks to be with you again, Matt, and honored to have a podcast with you, Hesham.
Thank you. But I'm in the presence of greatness here, it seems.
And Tomer's starting his own podcast called The Great Outdoors that he's going to do through the summer, is what I believe.
I wish.
Yeah. So, Hesham, if you will, give a brief history of your journey and how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So oddly enough, I am not a telco guy at all. So I've been in my role at TELUS 4 years, and that pretty much sums up my whole telco experience.
Okay.
So I trained as a software engineer. So I got a degree in computer engineering from McMaster University and a master's in software engineering from the University of Toronto, and immediately went into research. So I was at IBM for 10 years, working in research, developing compilers and IDEs and software development tools. And then I got the itch to try to be entrepreneurial. So I left IBM and had a couple of ventures. One was doing the first kind of mobile money transfer. So I was kind of in fintech. That didn't go out very well. And then and then I had a really good venture with Ecobee thermostats. So I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah.
Automation.
Yeah.
That was a labor of love for me. And did that. And then from there, I was running the digital team for Loblaws, which is Canada's largest.
Yeah.
So I helped build their online grocery platform.
All right.
Which the timing was perfect because when, the pandemic hit and everybody had to use it, it was just very interesting seeing that evolution and scale. And then I'm here at TELUS. So I'm fundamentally kind of a software builder at heart. Technologist.
And with all of that background, all of that engineering history, and your academia, how does that serve you at TELUS now? How do you leverage that in the executive role you have? Because I think you then come with a much fresher perspective and a much different background, right?
Indeed. So I think it comes in two different ways. First is just how we approach TELUS as a telco. We always say it's the telco to techco, but what does that really mean?
Yeah.
And what it fundamentally means is how do you change your IT functions from being a cost center, but to being a value creator? Like, how do you actually have built platforms? How do you actually, we always say in telco, we want to get higher up in the value chain, but you can't do that unless you start building some software platforms that like give you that leverage and give you that optionality. And so it's kind of taking that true software mentality and saying, how are we no different than a Google or an Amazon building platforms that we can build at scale? And so that's one perspective that my background brings to it. I think one of the reasons why they wanted me to come to TELUS.
Yeah.
I think the other one is just the way you think.
Yeah.
So as engineers, you're wired to be critical thinking, systems thinking.
Yeah.
Always applies first principles. So
Yes.
you don't just follow a process. You always question why.
Yeah.
Say, how do I do it better? How can we improve on this and get continuous improvement? And then how do you take some very complex domains, but then break it down into smaller bite-sized chunks into that sort of systems problem solving view to it? And I think that really helps a lot. So most of the skills that I bring to the table here.
Brilliant. And obviously you're here with us, the Amdocs today. Let's talk about a little bit of the partnership with Amdocs and how crucial is or important is Amdocs to your day-to-day right now?
Well, our company wouldn't survive without Amdocs. They're essentially the lifeblood of our company in terms of everything we do from a customer-facing perspective, all our customer transactions, from a mobility side, from provisioning to billing to rating, it all goes through Amdocs. So it's kind of the core of our company.
Yeah. And let's bring Tomer into the conversation. So, Tomer, you've obviously met Hesham many times. How do you view the relationship with Amdocs and TELUS and your conversations today?
So for me, it was fascinating, and there are different aspects. First of all, we see TELUS as an innovator in the space, and taking the telecommunication much farther than the trivial things. I think the amazing thing you did with the health, with the digital, I think it's tremendous. And we see TELUS keep challenging us and partnering with us. How could we take it forward? How could we drastically change the experience? How could we innovate and challenge all the perceptions on the way that you consume services, the way that the type of services that you would, get from a service provider? And this is what I like. And Hesham is amazingly sharp and challenging us, and is finding every spot that we could stretch ourselves and work together to harness the tools, the products and technology, but for business perspective.
Yeah.
We bring value. And this is what I like.
Yeah. And a question for you, Hesham, why is the monetization engine so critical to the overall customer experience? How do you keep it customer centric?
Well, I think so. Your question is why is monetization so important?
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, we're a business, not a charity. So we have to make profit. So at some point, you've got to figure out how do you make money and head to profit. But the key to it is to what you just said, though, is you have to keep the customers wanting to come, and you have to keep that demand, and you have to keep that stickiness.
Yeah.
And so that's why you think about it, is like you almost think of the money secondary.
Yeah.
I think that's just table stakes. It would happen, and just think, though, if you nail the customer experience, if you nail the value proposition, if you create something that's very compelling, that's very hard for me as a customer to want to leave, then the money flows. And so that's the heart of it, right?
Yeah. And the same question to you, Tomer, because I know this is your domain. Why is it so important from your perspective?
So I think there are different aspects, and Hesham talked about a couple of them, but other aspects could be, for example, the time to market. When you want to launch something else, you want to innovate, you want to try, you want to experiment.
Yeah.
You need the systems to be with you. You cannot afford to have a 6 or 12 month period before you could launch from the time you had an idea until the time your customers get it. And today, because let's be honest, in most of the ecosystem in the industry, a lot of the systems are still fragmented, built for purpose and isolated. It takes a long time. You have to do, especially when finance is involved and money is involved, then, the whole cycle takes ages. So you need something drastically different. And this is why we believe that monetization engines are not just built to make the money. And like Hesham said, to create the compelling experience, but also to help you run faster, innovate, experiment, maybe even fail, but fail fast, correct, and run faster.
Yeah.
I would say, just to top up on that, is the key word for me and what you said is experiment. Because it's one thing to get to market fast, and you always want to have that time to value.
Yes.
Is really important. But in this dynamic world that we're in today, and customer expectations are very fickle.
Yeah.
You got to keep trying things.
Yeah,
you got to keep trying things. And so if you don't have that platform to be able to do that and experiment and pivot and get feedback and learn, then you're going to be stagnant as a business.
Yeah.
And so it's very important to be able to have a platform that can support that.
Yeah.
And if you couple it with all the Gen AI and those capabilities, which in general will help you run much faster, you definitely need those types of enablers.
Now, we just said the word Gen AI 9 minutes into the podcast, you see, because it does come into every conversation that we have. But from your perspective, Hesham, how is generative AI now reshaping that customer experience? Again, are we still, would you suggest, in the experimental phase? Because I think a year on from all the big hype a year ago and everything, what I've noticed this year is very much at the implementation. It's happening. It's here. It's real. Is that, do you get a sense from that? And how are you deploying that across your systems at TELUS right now?
Yeah. So Gen AI is 100% for real, and it's here and it's at scale. I don't think it's a buzz. I think there's a lot of people that are throwing it out there, and it does feel a little bit that's too much hype.
Yeah.
But underneath the hype, there's definitely a lot of value, and we see it here today. I would still say we're very early in the journey, and not so much just because of adoption, but I think the capabilities of Gen AI are still very early. Like if you just look at the evolution that's happened over the last 12 months, the ability now for models to do reasoning.
Yes.
And now agentic and actually do tool calls.
Yes.
So it's no longer just an interaction where you're kind of getting a text or images, but now it can act on behalf of you. There's a whole other power that's unlocked.
Yeah.
Now they can do some reasoning. And so.
And like you said, in 12 months.
In 12 months.
Yeah. We weren't even prophesizing about this 12 months.
Well, a year ago, we were talking about token size. How can you keep the memory along of turns on a conversation?
Yeah.
Now that's not an issue anymore. And now you're talking about how does a model do a chain of thought and reasoning. And so I think we're still in the early innings of this game, and where generative AI is going to take us is going to be huge.
Yeah.
In terms of what it means to our industry, I think that the options are limitless. And I think a lot of what I see right now is people are coming on it from the efficiency play. Where can automate things out, where it can automate. And that's definitely an interesting use case.
Yeah.
But I feel it limits your thinking.
I agree.
Right? Because all you're trying to do is just drive efficiencies or take off costs. Where do you create new opportunities and new revenue?
Well, it's all, and I remember we've discussed it a lot of times. Again, like you said, people talk efficiency, which is reducing costs. But to me, it has to be about productivity. So doing more with what you have rather than doing what you were doing before with less.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And I think the more people start thinking about that, I think that's when we're really going to unlock the power of generative AI. And I think from a TELUS perspective, we look at it as two ways. We look at it, to your point, our own team member productivity. And so we've gone past the efficiency part.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at how does it empower our team members to drive better innovation.
Yeah.
And across all disciplines. So the simplest one is developers. That's my team. Well, now how are they much more productive software developers because they have these co-pilots that can get them from idea to full working prototype in minutes. And then it can, just generate a lot for them that way. But we look across other departments, like even our marketing departments, and how they look at it saying, okay, I want to have a creative brief. But now you've got this second opinion bounce ideas off of. And you can actually say, well, here's an idea.
Yeah.
Now give me 10 other alternatives or try the other alternatives real fast. And you tell it to go research the market or go search the internet and find the options. And so it becomes very generative that way.
Yeah.
And then I think we look at it from a customer perspective. How can we start building tools from a customer to them explore and discover TELUS? So instead of the traditional digital channel where you're trying to just scroll and look at phones or look at plans, can you have a dialogue? This is my lifestyle. And this is what I'm looking for. Comes says, okay, well, here's what I found for you. And health too, and where we can.
Yeah. Somebody said to me, it's not, we're not reading information anymore. We're having conversations with that information. Right.
True.
And obviously we talked about your history and your background at the beginning. How exciting or how transformative is generative AI in everything that you've seen today in your career? Is this like the biggest thing?
I think so. I mean, I feel awkward saying this because it feels like I'm just falling to the height.
Yeah.
But it really is. Like, if I say my career, I think there was a couple of transformational things that happened. The first was the internet, right? .com. And we went from a world where everything was very physical to all of a sudden there's new industries and new capabilities. You can go online banking, you can go online retail, and what that did to society.
Yeah.
So that was a huge inflection point. I think the next one would have been the smartphone.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, now look what everybody's doing in their pocket, and the fact that everybody's a professional photographer and a videographer and creating content and the industries that came up, whether it's the Ubers of the world. So again, a whole ecosystem got created out of that. Another one would have been the advent of cloud computing.
Yeah.
And again, I think that was transformative because look what it did to the ecosystem of startups. Like it used to be your barrier to entry. You might have a great idea.
Yeah.
But then if you had to go get a data center and rack server, but now anybody can have an idea and then their garage, and, with the credit cards, spin it out.
Yeah.
So then look what it did to pace of innovation.
Yeah.
And so those were three major transformative things kind of in my generation.
Yeah.
And I think Gen AI will trump all similar effects, right?
Yeah.
What it will unlock in terms of industries, business, and what it will do in terms of what humans can do and our abilities and what our new norm will be.
Yeah, exactly. Same question to you, Tomer, because you've been in the industry in telco a long time. But how excited are you about the notion of what can be unleashed here?
So I think Hesham described it well. It's as big as the revolution of like the internet or things of that magnitude. And we look at it in many different perspectives, both internally. How could we generate much more? And and I think it's more than just more. It's things that we could not have done before.
Mm-hmm.
It's unleashing areas where tapped. There were, I wouldn't say dreams, but there are areas that were not potentially capable from technology perspective. Suddenly you can.
Uh-huh.
So we're doing that a lot. I think it's going to change the experience because again, it's not just about the conversational, but it's also about the personalization of so I could give you the exact personalized experience in all sense. The product could reform itself during the dialogue with you to exactly what you do. And I think also obviously on the day-to-day and personal, just an anecdote. I just came back from a trip with the family, and I think it was lately all my trips are only Gen AI based. You go to and say, okay, this is what I have my 17 years old kid likes this and this, we're going there. And then suddenly we came into the first day into the car and the family comes in and usually I briefed them. I said, this is what, and then I just opened that ChatGPT and could you explain to the family what's going on in the next few days? And then they started challenging her and say, you know what? Could you add this? Could you change this? And say, okay, I'm revising. And it was like an hour of discussion of the whole family in the car. And so I think this is the type of experience that we want our customers to have with our products throughout the service providers and throughout the. So this, I think, is going to be a lot of the new edge. And looking at where we are, I think we're still looking for the killer use cases. And I think there are a lot of good ideas. We're implementing a lot of them. We start seeing some results, but I think we're still in an early stage of finding them. Yeah. I believe if I'm looking the phase that, or the pace of things evolving, I think probably, I don't know, a year from now is going to be more or less the year of inference, the year that we're going to nail down on the main use cases, keep on evolving. And then we're going to be focused on how could we go to mass production with everything that it comes in every device, every product, every use case.
Right at the beginning of this conversation, that what you said was interesting, Hesham, was in 12 months, look at the pace of this in 12 months is so rapid that the pace of adoption, it's the most adopted thing that's ever been launched in human history. I think the other thing I've noticed from a year ago to now is also people's acceptance of it. So 12 months ago, when I was asking similar questions, I said, what do you use it for personally? People would, I don't use it really because I'm a great writer, so I don't need to use it. Or they feel like they're taking a shortcut, or they feel like they're cheating, or they feel like they feel dirty. I shouldn't use it and I don't want my kids to use it because then a year on, the way people are viewing this now, the perception is totally different. Oh yeah, I'm using it for this. I do this, just like you said there. So my whole family are talking to it in the car. The embracing of it. We marveled at the technology 12 months ago, but now we're marveling at what it's actually doing for us. So in that 12-month step cycle, where do you expect, like Tomer just gave a good example on inference, where do you think in 12 months, what would be your forecast or prediction?
Oh,
I know it's a tough one, but you're on the spot.
That'd be almost foolish to walk into that one.
No, but I think given your history, I could go out and put a bet, right?
Well, let me put some context on it though first. Even see the way Tomer described the experience.
Yeah.
I think everybody who's used it now, there's an element of delight.
Yes. There you go.
Right? And very few people who interact with generative AI and there's point. And in fact, there's always this delight. And so I think there's that's
just marveling at it.
It's marveling, and it's just, oh my God, what has it unlocked for me in terms of capabilities? And so that's one element to look at.
Yeah.
I think the other element is, I think fundamentally from a societal point of view, it is going to change the dynamics. And in many ways, it's going to be, I call it the Great Equalizer.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you think of historically, there'll be some people who have access to certain information that other people don't.
Yeah.
And that creates divides.
Yes.
There's some people who have access to tools that other people, or skills that now you have this agent that everybody can have that's hyper personalized.
Yeah.
That levels the playing field. And so now everybody has the same body of knowledge as everyone else. Everybody can have their own personal travel agent. Yeah. Everybody can have their personal encyclopedia. Yeah. Everybody can have their writer and editor. And so that levels up. And in many ways, it brings some of the people who didn't have access to it, they kind of bring up. And I think all boats rise as society. And so I can't predict what AI is going to look like. Mm-hmm. But what I can predict is I think if this trend keeps happening, just even think of something simpler as education. Yeah. There's many places where people can't get access to education. And then even in places where you can, there's debates on educational system where it's not one size fits all. Yeah. And certain children need a certain way than another. Yeah. But now if you say that every child has access to an agent like that, then everybody can have their own personal educational attorney. Yeah. And at some point, everybody's educational level rises. Yeah. And so what I predict in 12 months is what we will see as a society. Yeah. Overall, all of us as a humanity will become a lot more productive, a lot more knowledgeable. Yeah. And then with that knowledge, I think we're going to start doing different things. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think so I can't predict where and how it's going to form, but if this evolution, this trend happens, so you're going to see more and more people using it. Yeah. And all of a sudden there's a new level of productivity.
And I heard an example this week to your point there that I'll share. Someone was telling me that there was a child somewhere at school and he was struggling with physics. He couldn't get his head around physics. And the traditional mechanisms of trying to teach him physics, the textbooks, wasn't breaking through. So generative AI basically produced a specific physics course based on his love for basketball. So they taught him physics using basketball metaphors and comparing it to basketball, and boom, he got an A. Yeah. So it tailor-made and customized his education plan based on his love for basketball. So that's exactly what you're talking about, right?
And so if you think about it, without that tool, you had kids that all had the potential to get A, but they're not.
Yes.
So what are we missing out as humanity? When now all of a sudden, everybody who has the potential to get an A is going to get an A. Yeah. And then now you have all these people getting A's across the board. What is that going to do?
Yeah. And we noticed on your LinkedIn, Hesham, when we were doing our investigations, you're passionate about social capitalism. So explain that notion to us. Is that effectively what we were talking about?
100%. Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest draws for me coming to TELUS. Yeah. Because that's essentially the ethos of what TELUS is. It's we give or we live. We're all about social purpose. Yeah. And it's very much about how do we use our technology or technology in general to drive better human outputs. Yeah. And so part of it is, like I said, the ethos is what you said here, and how can you create access? If you think of just our core as a telco, it's how do we provide a lot of connectivity to remote areas, that are served areas, and level up and create that access. And a lot of programs that mobility for good that we do, and data for good. And so there is a thing where you just, again, helping everybody level up, have equal access. And so that's a big part of it. And as Tomer mentioned, we have a healthcare business. Yeah. And then even in that, there's a lot of telehealth that we're enabling so that people in remote locations, indigenous locations that are underserved. Yeah. Yeah. How do you actually bring medical care to them? Yeah. And so that's a big part. Yeah. And so it's very big.
And it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because around the time of the pandemic, there was that corporate altruism everywhere. You looked at most of the service providers in North America were providing free Wi-Fi hotspots to kids, that bringing laptops for children that had to now be educated at home, making sure they had connectivity. We did an initiative in Canada with a charity that was providing connectivity and hardware to the remote indigenous populations in Canada. I don't remember that we did a podcast with them. It was a really fantastic initiative, and it wasn't about the dollars and cents anymore. There was an altruism in society to, like you said, to bring everybody up. And I think you're absolutely right. Generative AI has the power of doing that exponentially more than anything else we've ever seen, right? And And for us in the industry, we should be proud of that. That's something to be, it's not just noble, it's human, right?
Exactly. It's human. And I think it's a great purpose for all of us to strive for. And,
Yeah.
if you think about what's your legacy leave behind, if that's part of the legacy you leave behind,
Yeah. Exactly. That's a brilliant point. Now, we're running out of time. And I still have like 20 other questions, but that's always the indicator of a great podcast is, well, we need to bring you back for part 2. Hesham, at some time. We'll do it in Oakville, right? There we go. Yeah.
Jamaica, right? You said Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Yeah. But we also, I can't get into Jamaica anymore without a lot of security.
Oh, yeah, you're famous.
But how we typically finish the show is with some multiple choice fun questions called TGI to go. So I'm going to give you a couple of alternatives, and I'm going to do the same with you, Tomer, as well. So you're not off the hook, and you're just going to tell me why that's your preferred thing, whatever it is. You ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. TGI to go.
TGI to go.
Do you use ChatGPT, Gemini, or DeepSeek? All three.
Well, I would experiment with all three. Right. But if you were to tell me right now, what would I want to build something on? It would be Gemini.
Oh, interesting. And why would that be?
So, I don't know if you can trust DeepSeek yet.
Okay.
And for me, it's like you need to trust the data. You need to know how it was trained, what it was trained on, and how you can ground the model. And so I think there's still a lot of question marks in DeepSeek. Yeah. So that we are using there. And then from ChatGPT into Gemini, got a lot more experience. A big partnership with Google. TELUS.
Yes.
So we've always had very early access and previews. Yeah. So I think it's just more, I understand how it works under the covers and what it do. And again, I can trust the outputs of the model there a lot better. It's, at least for us, it's a bit more of an open ecosystem than usually closed.
Okay, cool. Tomer.
So DeepSeek we're less using for the obvious reasons that
Right.
Hesham mentioned. I think I like to see them. I use both, by the way, and I like to challenge them, sometimes one against the other. So there are games that they like compete. So you could see that it's more of a 50-50 odds. But so I think on a day-to-day for leisure, mostly ChatGPT. For other things, mostly Gemini.
And I think I haven't played with I think just as the notion of another disruption to the disruption with all the obstacles that it had in its way geopolitically, to still be able to do something pretty in such a short time frame is pretty.
I think, and don't get me wrong, I'm actually very bullish on DeepSeek.
Yeah,
just for your points, and I love that it was open sourced.
Yeah.
So again, back to like leveling and creating innovation and spurring innovation. I really like that about that, and I really like this notion that they've solved the computational problems in a very interesting way.
Yes, yeah.
And if you think about it, I think that the biggest hindrance right now to generative AI and adoption is just how power hungry it is. Yeah. And if you think about it just from an environmental footprint, what it does, but I don't know if you have enough power to even where if we wanted to scale and go. So I think we're going to need innovations like DeepSeek. To make it actually feasible.
Yeah, and by the way, I like DeepSeek if you're running and you have competition, you're going to run faster. And I think the fact that
it's a bit of a shake-up to Silicon Valley.
Wake-up call for the others that you think you're running fast. You can run much faster. I think that's so it's going to drive the whole industry faster and better.
Okay. So this question came from HR. Work from home or office?
It's a hybrid for me.
Oh, you do hybrid? Okay.
It's a hybrid. And for me, like, I'm not a big fan of come in for X days a week.
Yeah.
Because if you're just coming in to sit in the office, but you're going to sit on a video call the whole time, then what's the purpose? And so I think my philosophy and what we've done at my team in TELUS is certain ceremonies need to be done in purpose.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a brainstorming session or an ideation or a initiative kickoff or a retro, then those are where you need to kind of be in person, have those creative juices flowing. Yes. So those always, it's mandatory, come to the office for those.
Yeah.
But then outside of that, focus work.
Yeah.
Do whatever.
Cool. Where is the TELUS office? It's downtown, right? Is it?
In Toronto, it's 25 York.
Our office is Mavis and Matheson.
Okay.
Over there. Right.
We have a little TELUS building there around.
Oh, really? Yeah. Cool. Tomer?
So we're working hybrid, and I think we found over the years that it's a great combination. I think for the reasons Hesham said, there are circumstances where engagement is important. Brainstorming, whiteboarding, there are a lot of things.
Yeah.
And there are things and then people that works much more effective when they have their quiet time alone. So, and me traveling commuting an hour and a half or 2 hours every day, I could appreciate the benefits of working from home. But still, I think to find the balance, the right balance, which might change over the years, but I think is the key thing. So hybrid, I would go for hybrid.
Okay, so you could have some food tonight. I've thrown a bit of a Canadian one in here for you.
Okay.
Would you have poutine or fish and chips?
A fish and chip for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
For me, that just reminds me of my home origins in the UK.
And I think it'll be slightly healthier
Than poutine.
Slightly.
Yeah,
Still frying.
Yeah, exactly. Tomer?
I think neither.
Yeah.
Trying to lose weight.
Well, you need to stay off those things.
5 days at MWC didn't help on that one.
No.
Now, on your way home, you can watch a movie. Would you choose science fiction or drama?
Science fiction.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Any go-tos?
Well, I'm a big Bond fan, so it's not really science fiction. Hey, there's Q and there's the gadgets, but
What's your favorite Bond movie? I love asking people that just because I'm a big Bond fan.
So my favorite was Casino Royale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a Live and Let Die.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love that movie. Tomer, sci-fi or drama?
Probably drama.
Yeah?
I mean, I like both. And by the way, I like Westerns.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a good one, yeah.
I see quite a lot. I'm as passionate about that. Probably an all-time TV series like Lost, Prison Break, those types of things which I truly love. Yeah.
Cool. Now, and my final question here, and I was given a tip, an insider tip-off from Tomer here. But if you could go on a diving vacation, get a Sharm el-Sheikh, or would you go to the Maldives?
Oh, Charm for sure.
Yeah. I love Sharm el-Sheikh.
For sure, I go.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Red Sea's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
They're both amazing. I love the Red Sea. I grew diving almost every month in the Red Sea.
Yeah.
I think it's like the most fascinating area in the world.
But where did you just come back from?
Galapagos.
Yeah.
Galapagos is, over the years, I had the dream of diving with hammerheads.
Oh.
And every time I got to a place where hammerheads are, I traveled half the world to see them. I missed them.
Yeah.
And then I went to the Galapagos, and suddenly on the first dive, and almost every dive, you dive with like 100 of hammerhead sharks. For me, it was like the one off for my bucket list.
Wow. Awesome. It sounds amazing.
But there's still a list.
Awesome. Well, listen, that's all we've got time for, guys. We could have carried on for another hour easy. I've still got plenty of stuff here, but like I said, we'll park that one for either. We'll hopefully see you here again in 12 months or in the season, but it's been a pleasure to have you.
Very much.
Hesham, pleasure to have you so much. And Hesham, is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with before we sign off today?
Last thoughts. Well, since we talked about generative AI, it's like if you haven't played with it, just go play with it and have fun with it.
Exactly.
Like the more fun you have and the more turn you'll start discovering stuff.
Speaking of fun, we have the prompt.
Yes, I prepared
You got it?
my daughter. Yes.
So maybe we tell him. We have the nice thing with the shirts that we're doing here. So for our audience, we're taking prompts, creating a photo and creating a shirt. So I send back home my kids. Obviously, I don't even have to tell them what prompt is. Just create a prompt for whatever you want on your shirt. And they started sending me back and forth different versions. So I told Hesham yesterday, send it to your family.
Yeah.
Come back with some good prompt and we'll try to get one there. This is the next step.
There you go. That's cool. That's brilliant. Okay, guys, thank you very much. It's been a fantastic pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So thank you very much, Hesham. Thank you very much, Tomer. That was a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed every moment of it. And it took part on the final day of MWC as well. It couldn't be more fitting. So if you like that episode, please rate or review. It certainly helps us. If you want to hear all the Great Indoors back catalogue of episodes going back 5 years, they're all available on your favorite podcast outlets or at www.amdocs.com/The Great Indoors. We'll be back next week for more incredible conversations from the show floor here at MWC Barcelona 2025. And until then, I'm Matthew Roberts from Amdocs in Barcelona, and have a great day wherever you are.